Hello, this is ClearThinker, and this is my first video. Allow me to tell you a little bit about myself. I am not a professional astronomer, but I have had an interest in the stars ever since I was a young child growing up on the farm. About 6 years ago, I developed a serious interest in astronomy, and my interest has taken me from simple visual observation into astrophotography. From there, I began working in astrophotometry, which is the measurement of the light coming from stars. Most recently, I've delved into spectroscopy, the analyzing of the light spectrum. As I create more videos, I expect to be making use of all of these skills and in the process hopefully provide you with interesting material related to astronomy. My observatory is a simple one, consisting of the Meade LX200 GPS 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope with the Meade DSi-3 Pro Series digital camera attached, and a low-cost, low-resolution spectrograph. Even though I live in town and have to deal with light pollution, I'm amazed at what I'm able to see and photograph. For those who may be interested, I am also very devout in my service of Jesus. I have been a Christian for about 40 of my 55 years. My actual degrees are in ministry and history. However, I do not share the belief of so many that God is about to destroy the world with a brown dwarf star. I do cherish the expectation of the return of Jesus, for the promise of his return was made at his ascension. Most of what I see here in YouTube pertaining to judgment is based in extremely faulty interpretations of what Scripture really says. Neither do I accept the claim of those who pretend to have knowledge channeled through aliens and spirits. Such sources are extremely dubious at the best, and I think deliberate lies at the worst. As I have sorted through all the hysteria related to the doomsday scenarios, a common thread that I find are people claiming specific knowledge from such sources. It is my goal to talk about many of these claims and in the process educate people on some of the most basic aspects of astronomy. Most of the claims being made are so unreasonable as to actually defy reason. When these claims are challenged, the response is usually to engage in name-calling or to hide behind claims of mass conspiracy. I don't expect I'll have any effect on the true believer, but hopefully those who are simply confused and those who really do want to know will find things here worth keeping. I've created this first video in response to numerous other videos I have seen posted claiming the moon was in some sort of odd orientation, and therefore was visual and positive evidence of an ongoing pole shift. There is much I want to say on so-called proofs of pole shift, but for now I'm limiting myself to the question of the moon. Now, most of us are familiar with charts of the moon's phase, such as the one shown here. What we notice about this chart is the vertical orientation of the moon. Now, it must be understood that these charts do not reflect the orientation of the moon at all times, but only when the moon is at the meridian. The meridian is an imaginary line that intersects both poles. If you live in the northern hemisphere, the meridian is due south. If you live in the southern hemisphere, it lies due north. When the moon crosses the meridian, you will see it vertically oriented. So why does the moon appear vertical only at the meridian? The answer is due to the nature of its orbit around the Earth. The moon is tidally locked to the Earth. Its rotation is perfectly matched to its orbit, so that from Earth we only see one side of the moon. The position of the moon's shadow is dependent upon two things: the position of the sun relative to both the moon and our position on Earth. Remember, both the moon and the Earth are moving around the sun, while at the same time the moon is also moving around the Earth. The graphic illustrates a half moon rising in the east. The sunny side appears up because the sun is still above our horizon. From our perspective, the moon is following the sun. As the moon approaches meridian, it appears to right itself. This change in orientation is only from our perspective, since the border of the moon's shadow, which is called the terminator, has not changed from the moon's perspective. As the moon leaves the meridian and proceeds to the western horizon, it continues to appear to rotate so that at moonset the bright side is now touching the horizon. Remember, at moonrise, the shadow was touching the horizon. If you think about it, this is what we would expect to see, for the moon is following the sun, and the sun is now below our horizon. And even this example is dependent upon the seasons. As the sun and moon move higher and lower in our skies during the summer and winter months, and as the moon orbits around the Earth and changes the degree of its orbit, the orientation of the moon at moonrise and moonset will also vary accordingly. Now, I took this particular image while on a hike to the beautiful Sawtooth Lake near Stanley, Idaho, in early August of 2011. As you can see, the moon is about at half full, perhaps just a little bit over, and the dark side is touching the horizon. The time of day was fairly early. If I remember, this was around 11 a.m. In this case, the sun was following the moon from our perspective and was continuing to rise in the sky. It is easy to visualize why the dark side is facing down. This next image I took March 24th, 2012, at about 8:30 p.m. from my hometown. In this case, it is very easy to see the dark side is facing up. And that makes sense because the moon is following the sun, and the sun has already set. If the moon at this time was seen in the orientation that is pictured in moon charts, that would be reason to be greatly alarmed, for that would mean the Earth really was out of whack in respect to the position of the moon and sun. So keep looking up and don't allow yourself to be alarmed by people making wild claims about pole shifts and the moon being in the wrong orientation. And by all means, if you think something doesn't look quite right, do some study. The human race has been staring at the moon since the very beginning. The correct answer to your question is easily found. In the meantime, keep looking up and keep learning.